The most disturbing thing Neville Goddard ever taught has nothing to do with money or love or getting the thing you want. It is this: the person who irritates you most in this world does not exist, not the way you think they do. That coworker who makes your jaw tighten, that relative whose voice raises your pulse before they even finish a sentence, the stranger whose cruelty confirmed everything you already believed about people, none of them are out there. They are you, pushed out, handed back to your own eyes, wearing a face you refuse to recognize as your own. What if I told you that everything in front of you right now is a mirror, and that you have spent your whole life blaming the glass for the reflection? The room, the people, the news, the slow injustice you feel closing in around you. Neville said the outer world has no reality of its own. It is not a place that exists on its own terms and simply happens to you. It is a surface, and that surface returns without a single exception the exact state from which you are looking at it. Stay with me, because this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. They hear the world is a mirror, they nod, and they change nothing. By the end of this, you will understand why that nod is the whole problem. A mirror is not kind, it does not flatter, it does not soften the thing you cannot stand to see. It is exact, and that exactness is precisely what you have been running from your entire life. To understand why this idea is so unbearable, you have to understand the man who carried it. Neville Goddard was born in 1905 in Barbados, one of 10 children in a family of merchants. At 17, he sailed to the United States to become a dancer and an actor. He was not a scholar, he was not a scientist, he was a performer who stumbled into something in New York that rearranged the way he saw all of reality. According to Neville, the turn came through a teacher he met in the city, an older man he called Abdullah. Neville described him as a black man, an Ethiopian Jew, steeped in Hebrew, in the Kabbalah, and in the mystical reading of Scripture. For roughly 7 years, Neville sat with him, and the most important thing this teacher pressed into him was not a technique for getting things, it was a refusal to blame the outer world for anything. The famous story runs like this. Neville wanted to spend the winter in Barbados with his family, and he had no money for the passage. He went to Abdullah, and Abdullah, as Neville told it, would not even discuss the ship, the ticket, the cost. He simply said, in effect, "You are already in Barbados. Not you will be, you are. Assume the state. Sleep as the man who is already there, and stop staring at the empty wallet as though it were the truth about you." Notice what that is. It is a man being forced to stop reforming his circumstances and start reforming himself. And here is the uncomfortable seed of everything that follows. If the wallet is a reflection, then so is the person who wronged you. If the passage appears when the state changes, then the enemy softens when the state changes too. Abdullah was not teaching Neville a trick. He was teaching him that there is no out there to fix. Let me put you inside the moment this idea becomes real, because it is one thing to say it and another to feel the floor tilt. Imagine you walk into a room and someone treats you with contempt. Not open cruelty, just that cool dismissal. The eyes that slide past you, the tone that tells you that you do not quite matter. You feel it land in your chest, and immediately, automatically, your mind does the thing it has always done. It builds a case against them. What a cold person! What arrogance! How dare they? Neville would tell you to treat that moment like a detective at a crime scene where there is no suspect but you. Because the contempt you just received, the exact flavor of it, is a state you carried into that room. Not always about them, often about yourself. The quiet verdict you hold against your own worth, dressed up in someone else's expression, handed back so cleanly you would swear it started there. This is the heart of what Neville called "everyone is you pushed out." There are no others in the sense you imagine. There is only you expressed outward, playing every part. The person in front of you is an actor reading lines from a script you wrote in a language you have forgotten you speak.
And when the scene stings, when it truly stings, it is not because the actor is lying. It is because they are telling the truth about a state you have refused to claim. Which raises a question most people spend their whole lives avoiding.
If the world is a mirror, why does it hurt so much to look? The answer is not that the reflection is false. If it were false, you could laugh it off. You could walk away untouched. What is unbearable is that it is accurate. When someone's greed disgusts you, when someone's neediness makes your skin crawl, when someone's arrogance lights a fire in you far too hot for the size of the offense, the heat is the tell. The intensity is the confession. You do not rage at what is foreign to you. You rage at what is intimate and denied. Neville put the cause squarely inside. In Feeling is the Secret, from 1944, he was direct. Your inner state is the cause, and the world is the effect. Feeling impresses the deeper mind, and the deeper mind arranges the world to match. So the trait that enrages you in another is not information about them, it is information about you. It is a part of yourself you have exiled, wearing a disguise good enough that you can keep punishing it without ever recognizing your own face. This is why the discomfort matters more than the insight. Anyone can say the world reflects consciousness. What almost no one can do is stand in front of the reflection when it shows something they hate and not look away. The looking away is instant. It is a reflex older than thought. Someone shows you a version of yourself you cannot tolerate, and in a fraction of a second, the mind converts the whole thing into a story about them. Problem solved. Except nothing is solved. You have only fogged the glass so you do not have to see. There are patterns to this flight. Once you see them, you will catch yourself in the act, and catching yourself is where all the power lives. Let me name 4. The first is blame, the purest form of looking away. The moment discomfort rises, you assign it an owner outside yourself. They did this. They are like that. The story is airtight, and it is a cage. Because as long as the cause is out there, you have handed away the only lever that could ever change it. The second is contempt. This one is subtler because it feels like strength. You look down on the person who shows you the trait, and every ounce of that superiority is a wall you are building, so you never have to stand at eye level with the thing you share. We despise most fiercely what we are most afraid of finding in ourselves. The third is fear. You do not hate the reflection, you dread it. The injustice you are certain is coming, the betrayal you keep scanning the horizon for. Neville would ask you to notice that the fear is not a prophecy about the world. It is a state you are wearing. And the world, being a mirror, is simply beginning to arrange itself to confirm what you already assumed was true. The fourth is the most sophisticated of all. It is agreement without change. You hear, the world is a mirror. You say, yes, beautiful, and you go on living exactly as before. You have used the truth itself as a place to hide. The nod becomes the newest, cleverest way of not looking. If one of those just described you, if you felt caught, do this. Write in the comments the phrase, I stopped fogging the glass. Not for me, for you. Naming the reflex out loud is the first crack of light through it. Let me make this concrete, because in the abstract it stays safe, and safe is useless here. Think of one specific person, not a category, a person, someone whose behavior genuinely bothers you. Hold their most irritating trait in your mind. The arrogance, the dishonesty, the way they make everything about themselves. Now do the hard thing. Do not ask, why are they like that? Ask, where does this live in me? Almost always the answer is not the mirror image you expect. Say their arrogance enrages you. It may not be that you are secretly arrogant. It may be that you have spent your whole life suppressing your own worth, biting down on every impulse to take up space, and their freedom to do exactly that so easily is intolerable to watch. The trait you hate in them is often the shadow of a permission you have refused to give yourself. That is the mirror at its deepest. It is not always showing you a flaw you share. Sometimes it is showing you a life you have not allowed. The person you envy is holding a state you believe is off-limits to you. The person you resent is expressing something you have condemned in yourself so thoroughly that seeing it walk around free feels like an insult. And this is where it stops being a burden and becomes a key. If the trait out there points to a state in here, then you finally know where to work. Not on them. You were never going to change them, and now you understand you were never supposed to. You work on the state, you revise the verdict, and as the state changes, the reflection has no choice. A mirror cannot keep showing you a frown once your own face has softened.
Now, I have to give you the warning, because this teaching has an edge, and people cut themselves on it. When you first grasp that the whole world is your own state pushed out, a certain intoxication can set in. If everyone is me, the mind whispers, then everyone is beneath me. If there are no others, then no one else's pain is quite real. This is the trap. This is where the teaching curdles into something cold. A person can take the most liberating idea available to a human being and turn it into a private tyranny, a fortress of the self where other people are downgraded to puppets and their suffering to background noise. Neville's answer to this is not softness for its own sake, it is precision. If everyone is you pushed out, then contempt for another is contempt for yourself. Cruelty to another is a state you're impressing on your own deeper mind, and it will be reflected back with the same brutal fidelity as everything else. The man who uses this law as a weapon is loading a gun aimed at his own reflection. There is no one else in the mirror to hit. So, the danger is real, and it is this. Power without love does not liberate you, it isolates you. It builds a throne in an empty room and calls it awakening. The whole point of recognizing yourself in the other is not to reign over them, it is to stop the war. It is to understand that the forgiveness you have been withholding from someone else has always, in the geometry of this law, been forgiveness you were withholding from yourself.
There is a moment in this work that feels like a small death, and I will not pretend otherwise. It is the moment you finally stop blaming, not because you decided to be a better person, because you saw, clearly and without escape, that the case you had built against someone was really a case against a disowned part of yourself. The relief of blame is gone. You can no longer point outward and feel that clean, righteous heat. The story that organized your whole sense of the situation collapses, and for a breath, there is nothing to stand on. The mystics had a name for this stage, the blackening, the dissolving, the point where an old identity has to break down before anything new can form. Neville framed the same movement through the language of Scripture, read not as history, but as a drama unfolding inside every human being. The old self does not get improved, it gets crucified. The version of you that survived on grievance, that needed an enemy to feel real, has to die. This is why the mirror is not a comfort. Comfort leaves you intact. The mirror asks something of you. It asks you to give up the enemy. And the enemy, if you are honest, has been useful. He explained your life. He carried the blame you could not carry yourself. Letting him go means picking that weight back up, and finally, for the first time, holding it where it always belonged, in your own hands, as your own state, as the one thing in the entire universe you actually have the power to change. Watch what happens the moment you begin to change the state instead of the reflection. The world pushes back, almost as if it does not want you to wake up. You decide to stop reacting to the person who provokes you. You hold a new state, calm, whole, and within a day, they seem to try twice as hard to pull the old reaction out of you.
The circumstance sharpens. The temptation to slide back into the familiar story becomes almost irresistible. Neville understood this. He called the world of the senses the world of facts and evidence and hard logic, the world of Caesar, and Caesar does not surrender territory quietly. Understand what is happening. The outer world is a reflection running on a delay. You change the state, but the mirror is still catching up, still showing you the last thing you assumed before you shifted. Most people in exactly this window panic. They see the old reflection persist, they decide the law is false, and they abandon the new state right at the threshold, moments before it would have set. The persistence of the old image is not proof of failure, it is the final test of your assumption. In The Law and the Promise from 1961, Neville filled page after page with people who held the new state through precisely this pressure. People who refused to let a stubborn reflection dictate their inner posture. And in every case, the outer world eventually broke and reformed to match the state they had quietly, stubbornly refused to abandon. The mirror always catches up. The only question is whether you are still standing in the new state when it does.
So, what do you actually do? Not in theory, tonight. Let me give you 3 movements, because this cannot stay an idea. An idea changes nothing. A changed state changes everything. The first movement is recognition. When someone next provokes you, before the story starts, before you build the case, pause and ask one question. What state in me is this showing me? Not to punish yourself, to locate the source. You are turning from the reflection to the glass, to the thing behind the glass, which is you. This single pause, held honestly, does more than a year of blaming ever could. The second movement is revision. Neville taught that you can go back in imagination and rewrite the scene. Take the encounter that stung today. Replay it tonight in that drowsy state on the edge of sleep, but revised. See the person as gracious. See yourself as calm and whole. Feel it as real. You are not lying to yourself about the past. You are changing the state that produced the reflection. And by law, the reflection must follow the state, never the other way around. The third movement is living from the end. Stop waiting for the person to change so you can feel at peace. Assume the peace now. Move through your day as the one who has already been met with respect, already treated with warmth, already forgiven what needed forgiving. Feel it until it is more real than the memory. And then, quietly, let the mirror do what a mirror has always done. Return to you, without exception, the exact state from which you chose to look. If this is the kind of work you want to go deeper into, subscribe. There is far more of it here, and we are only beginning to open the door.
So here is where I leave you. In front of the glass you have been dodging your whole life. Everything around you right now is a verdict. The people, the tension, the slow shape of your circumstances, all of it is your own state, pushed out into the world and handed back to your eyes as though it belonged to someone else. That is the weight of it, and that is the freedom of it, because a verdict handed back to you is a verdict you can rewrite. Not by scrubbing the glass, not by reforming the reflection, by changing the one who stands before it. The person you cannot stand is showing you your own face. The thing you fear outside is a state you are holding inside. This is not a sentence. It is the only key you were ever handed. The instant you stop looking away is the instant the world begins to return something else. Neville spent his life trying to get people to understand one thing. You are not a victim of the world you see. You are its author, dreaming so deeply that you have mistaken your own creation for a fate imposed on you from outside. The mirror never lied to you. It has been telling you the exact truth patiently your entire life, waiting for the day you would stop blaming it and finally look. So tonight, look again, and this time, do not turn away.